What if I told you that in just 12 months, a single real estate deal quietly outperformed the stock market, a savings account, and maybe even your side hustle all at the same time? We're not talking about some guru fantasy. We're talking about a real, replicable strategy that generated serious cash-on-cash returns in year one. And today I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly how it happened. Let's set the stage, because the word cash on cash gets thrown around like confetti at a real estate conference, and most people nod along without actually knowing what it means. Simply put, it's the percentage of your actual cash invested that comes back to you as cash profit in a year. So if you put in $50,000 and got back $10,000 in net cash flow, that's a 20% cash on cash return, full stop. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the strategy we used wasn't some exotic Wall Street maneuver. It was a humble, almost boring, medium density residential property in a secondary market that nobody was throwing a parade over. The secret wasn't the zip code or the property type. It was the structure of the deal, the financing, and the discipline to not get greedy. We used a combination of conventional financing and a seller carryback note, which is a fancy way of saying the seller agreed to act as the bank for a portion of the purchase price, reducing how much cash we actually had to bring to the closing table. Less cash in means the same cash flow now represents a higher percentage return. It's not magic, it's math. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the part that makes most people lean in and then immediately second guess themselves. The property wasn't perfect, the neighborhood wasn't trending on Instagram, and the paint color inside was a shade of green that can only be described as government waiting room chic. But ugly ducklings with strong fundamentals are where the real returns hide, because everyone else is busy fighting over the pretty swans. Let's talk about the psychological trap, because this is where most investors blow it before they even start. There's this seductive pull toward waiting for the perfect deal, the perfect rate, the perfect market. And meanwhile, the calendar just keeps flipping pages, and your capital sits in a savings account, earning a number so small, it's basically rounding error. History is actually pretty generous with its lessons here, if you're willing to listen. Every single decade has had a moment where smart people said, now is the worst time to invest in real estate. And every single decade, the people who invested anyway, carefully, and with discipline, came out ahead within a reasonable window. The biggest misconception I want to smash right now is that high cash-on-cash returns require either enormous risk or enormous wealth. Neither is true. What they require is creative deal structuring, patient underwriting, and the willingness to look at deals that other people dismiss because the surface isn't shiny enough. Let's get practical for a second, because strategy without execution is just a daydream with a spreadsheet. The levers that moved the needle in year one were buying below market value through an off-market relationship, minimizing cash in through creative financing, and keeping expenses ruthlessly controlled through proactive property management rather than reactive panic calls to contractors. One thing we did that most beginners skip is stress test the deal at 3 different vacancy scenarios: 5%, 10%, and 15% before we ever made an offer. If the numbers still worked at 15% vacancy, we moved forward. If they didn't, we walked. And walking away from a bad deal is the most underrated skill in this entire game. Position size matters more than conviction. Let me say that again for the people in the back. We did not bet the entire portfolio on this one property. We sized it appropriately so that even if everything went sideways, life continued, the strategy continued, and the lesson was tuition rather than a catastrophe. There's a certain irony in the fact that the investors who obsess over timing the market almost always underperform the investors who simply focus on the quality of the deal and the discipline of the process. The market doesn't care about your feelings, your newsfeed, or whether Mercury is in retrograde. It rewards preparation and punishes impatience with almost poetic consistency. So would you try this strategy? That's the question we opened with. And honestly, the answer depends less on the strategy itself and more on whether you're willing to do the boring, unglamorous work of underwriting deals, building relationships, and saying no far more often than you say yes. The returns are real, the process is learnable, but the discipline, that part is entirely on you. At the end of the day, real estate investing isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the most consistent, the most prepared, and the most comfortable with uncertainty while still taking calculated, measured action. Whether this specific deal had returned 50% or 5%, the framework, the sizing, the structure, the stress testing would have protected us either way, and that peace of mind is worth more than any single year's return. If you're ready to stop watching from the sidelines and actually run the numbers on a deal, check out our links in the description below. Whether you're looking to get into real estate investing, need contracting work done on a property, or want to connect with lenders who actually understand investor financing, we can help you get started.